Welcome to the Awaken Beauty podcast. I am Cassandra, your positive mind management and endocannabinoid mentor. And today I want to talk about frequency. So when I talk about frequency, many of you know that I'm a hypnotherapist. And when we talk about these different states of the mind and how we experience life, it's quite important actually in understanding how hypnotherapy really works. So there are two main aspects of the mind. One is the conscious mind, and the other is the subconscious mind. And we have this analytical, critical part of our brain that governs our awareness or our consciousness at any point in time. And it is the final processing point for our decisions, actions, or our reactions in daily life, which we are always aware that we are making. Now, the subconscious mind is pretty intuitive, if you would mind me saying myself. And this very, very deep part of our soul is where the mind is responsible for processing thousands of things at any one time and for storing everything, and I mean everything we have experienced in our lives in different degrees of importance. And it sort of runs on autopilot. So this kind of works like a computer. And without us even realizing it, we're always working out of our subconscious. In this respect, it is much like the hard drive of a computer that stores all of this information that is accessed by the other parts of the computer, which is the mind. So many other recognized institutions and researchers also refer to the unconscious mind, which is usually concerned with regulated, the automated processes of the physical body. For the purpose of this podcast and also the thought process of belief that the mind motivates us, we're going to be talking about the different frequencies of the mind and how we can regain control of our mind, body, and spirit. It's pretty fascinating. So I lead with a question. Have you ever wondered what kind of brain waves you produce? First off, we don't ever produce only just one brain wave. Okay, we are basically a brain of activity, and it's this mix and matrix of all these different frequencies at the same time, some in greater quantities and strength than other times. So the meaning of all of this is balance is key. Now, we don't want to regularly produce too little or too much of this frequency. And when I talk about balance, I don't know if I can firmly say that it's achievable, but I know for myself, I'm always looking to try to achieve it. So despite the fact that more has been learned about the brain in probably the last 30 years than all of human history, much like our endocannabinoid system, right? It's really come to an understanding for scientists, myself, and many before that all of these pieces really do fit together in human consciousness. And however we do this, whether consciousness is related to communication, a spiritual aspect, it's really delivered in all of these different parts of the brain and frequencies. So different levels of consciousness and states of mind are the result of different areas of the brain basically communicating with one another at the same time. We also know that these different areas of the brain communicate by sending electrical signals along the neurons that connect one area of the brain to another area of the brain. And there's over 100 billion neurons in the brain itself, and each of these make hundreds and hundreds and thousands of connections, which basically means that these total hundreds and trillions and thousands of connections make these electrical connections at the heart of how well our brain really functions. So it's the frequency of the mind. Now, the question is, how do we achieve balance? So we do both need this flexibility and this resilience to remain in optimal functionality of the brain. And flexibility generally means being able to shift from one state to another, or an activity from one to another, and always staying in a working process, not in an excitatory or depressed state. And we're just kind of in this flow. And when we talk about the brain, we need to be able to shift these different brain activities to match what we're doing in our everyday life. So at work, we need to stay focused and stay attentive. And those beta waves are really, really good things. And I'll explain beta in a moment. But when we get home, we want to throw up our hair in a bun, we want to wash our face, take off our bra, and just simmer down and relax, or spend time with our family. We want to produce less, and we want to move into this alpha state, into this alpha activity, where then at the end of the day, we want to move into sleep and rest and relaxation, which is our theta waves. So we run into illness, into trouble, into maybe we're not doing well at school or in the workplace, anxiety, when we're not optimally working within the frequency of the brain at the right time and place. Sometimes we may even get stuck in a pattern, or we may have an organic situation where we actually have an illness, or we get a concoction when the brain then ends up in a stuck state that really works to our advantage to keep us there so it can resolve and heal itself. So flexibility is really the key, and it's the goal for an efficient brain functioning with optimal resilience, and generally this means stability in our emotion state, in our brain state, in our physical state. And so when we need to wind down, or we need to become excitatory, we understand the different frequencies by ways that we produce our activity levels, or the way we think, or if we go and listen to music to kind of get us into these different frequencies. So it comes down to how we can really become more resilient in our lives. So the brain needs to be able to bounce back from all of these unhealthy things that we either experience in our exposome or in our inner ecosystem, that could be from environmental to smoking or drinking, binging, whatever you want to call it. It's this resilience that we need to stay in to be healthy and happy. And it starts right here in the brain. So resilience is critical for our brain to be effective. And I think we get that, okay? So when our brain is lacking and it's not flexible or resilient, we end up in frequencies that do not serve us. So my question to you is, how flexible are you? We want our brain to be able to shift and move into these different states, whatever we're doing, to remain resilient and to be able to get into the flow. And so really, we talk about biohacking and hacking and the state of flow. This is really what we're talking about. And to do this, it needs access to a different variety of different brain states. So these states are produced by different patterns and types of the brain, which are basically different waves of frequency, okay? So the mind operates at 4 predominant brainwave states or frequencies. And these states are classified according to the speed. It's classified according to the speed of the predominant brainwave signals from one neurological point to the other neurological point of the brain. And it's these speed of frequencies that are measured in hertz, otherwise known as Hz, if you're reading something that's basically what it's resembling. And that can be tested in an EEG. So the first is beta. And beta is usually where our mind operates during our day, in our everyday daily life. We're conscious, we're aware, we're gathering all different bouts of information and attention in our brain that could usually be just studying or conversating with a friend or thinking about something that's coming up, or we're trying to problem solve. And these higher states of beta frequencies usually equate to stress, unfortunately, anxiety and overthinking, as the conscious mind becomes misguided or reacts negatively to any given situation. So high brainwave beta also equates to hypertension in our health, increased heart rate, blood flow, and cortisone production and glucose consumption. So generally speaking, you do not want to experience this high beta state at any given point for a long period of time. Now, it's useful when we need it, and it's going to affect our health. So the next state is called the alpha. And this is just this mild daydream, this relaxation state. Maybe we're daydreaming in class, or we're on the phone call with a friend, and we're just kind of drifting off and daydreaming. It also can be when you're driving your car, you got to your destination and you didn't even remember driving your car. This is when we're captivated in that state, and we kind of lose track of what's happening around us. And this is a really optimal time to be in meditation, and it's usually aimed at the alpha state. Now, this is a higher level of meditation that operates in these hertz of 9 to 14. So alpha is really this partially conscious awareness and partially subconscious predominance. And at any simple point in time, they're kind of in this fluctuating state, and we absorb it. We absorb the information, and when we're in alpha, and it's considered to be highly desirable to be in this state for studying or to be focusing on something, it promotes basically our left brain side of thinking. And this is the part of the brain that is used for processing. Now, the next is theta. Deep relaxation. This is where the conscious mind is, and for the most part, it's switched off. And the subconscious then is able to be accessed. It's where the mind is left to really, really flourish. And this is usually typical when we're sleeping or really deeply daydreaming or in this very, very deep state of relaxation. And as a hypnotist, I usually try to get clients in this theta state, and we call this catalepsy. And this is 5 to 8 hertz. And theta is where all of these ideas, the visualization works really well to being able to take suggestion, where your guard dog is turned down and you're able to really take these different suggestions and use them for your advantage to reach your goals, do regression and healing, etc. It's pretty great. Now, delta. I guess you can guess that this would be deep sleep. And this is where the subconscious is in operation. And we experience this in our deepest, deepest sleep at night, or when you take a nap. And it is where the physical body heals. It's in this place that we recuperate and we recover at a very heightened level. You can also be in this waking delta if you're in an advanced state of a deep, deep meditation. Or I can put you in amnesia if you're going into a surgery and you can't take medication. And it's where this yogi has this kundalini experience. And delta is typically between the brainwave states of 1 to 4 hertz per second. It's pretty amazing. So the question is, what stops our brain from being in balance all of the time? Brain balance. That's what we want, right? So here's the big 6. I think you probably guessed they're injury, medications, fatigue, chronic fatigue, stress, distress, chronic pain, and just this sub-level stress that we have every day. So it's these 6 things that we really want to pay attention to that break this pattern of the brain being able to be fluid between the conscious and the subconscious to work to our advantage. So to review, in this brainwave frequency, brainwaves are generated by the building blocks of the brain with all of these different cells called neurons. And these neurons communicate from one side and one area to the brain to the other, and they radiate these frequencies that want to keep us in balance. And we certainly do have the abilities to keep them in control. And we can test it on an EEG, or we can simply start to experience them by putting ourselves into self-hypnosis, experiencing it through a hypnotherapy session or a guided meditation, or even going on a run where we enter into this flow state. It's an incredible place to be. And when you start to taste it, you don't want to leave it. And I know this from example and how I've experienced these different brain states and achieved to wake up and to be in this state at all times, to really optimize my brain in what I'm doing at any current time in my day or needing to go to sleep. So again, to review, we have these 4 different brain states and frequencies. We start at beta, we move into alpha, we get into theta, and then delta, where we're in our deepest sleep. So next time, even if you're an analytical thinker or if you're a light worker and empathy lover like myself, when we understand these different brain states, we really can understand both the EEG analytical part of it and the absolutely experiential part of it, of how we can be in control of these different trance states all through our day. So I hope this was helpful in connecting some dots or energetic frequencies to understanding how our brain works in this coherence. Because really, if we look at Joe Dispenza's work or Bruce Lipton or any other thought leader before their time, we really can understand that it is coherence that we can enter and to alter our brain states and getting out of what's the mind interpreting at any given time, to move it into a state to be able to almost leave the body, be an analytical thinker and analytically think about our thoughts. That moves us into this flow state that allows us to remove the emotion, the imagination, and different, let's just call them states that we were triggered in the past. So I hope this was a blessing to you. I love all of you Awaken Beauty podcast listeners. Thank you for listening. And remember, stay sane and get sleep, and bring your sexy back. This is Cassandra, your organic beauty, positive mind management, and endocannabinoid mentor. And until next time, thank you for joining me.